The phone call came at 2:47 a.m., the kind that shatters sleep and splits your world into before and after. James Peterson's hands trembled as he gripped his cell phone in the executive parking garage of Peterson Technologies, his father's billion-dollar empire. At 26, he'd been groomed for boardrooms and power lunches, taught to calculate profit margins, but never how to measure the weight of helplessness. His mother, vibrant, laughing, the only person who'd ever made his father smile, was dying in a hospital 17 miles away, and the doctor said she had hours, maybe less. His Porsche wouldn't start. The battery was dead, silent as a tomb. His father was in Singapore on business, unreachable for another 3 hours. Every ride-share app showed a 40-minute wait. The company's fleet of vehicles sat locked behind security gates that required his father's authorization code. A code James had never needed because he'd never imagined needing it. Panic clawed at his throat. His mother was dying, and he was trapped in a concrete garage surrounded by millions of dollars of machinery he couldn't access. Wealth that meant absolutely nothing when measured against the seconds ticking away from his mother's life. That's when he saw the figure emerge from the stairwell, Carlos Martinez, pushing his cleaning cart, the night janitor whose face James had passed 1,000 times without really seeing. Carlos was 61 years old, with silver threading through his dark hair and hands calloused from decades of honest work. He'd cleaned these floors for 15 years, arriving when everyone left, invisible as the air they breathed. "Please!" The word ripped from James's chest before pride could stop it. "Please, I need help. My mom's dying. She's at Memorial Hospital and my car won't start and I can't get there and she's dying and I..." The young man who'd never begged for anything in his privileged life fell to his knees on the oil-stained concrete, his Armani suit crumpling, his carefully constructed composure shattering into 1,000 pieces. Carlos didn't hesitate. He didn't ask questions or calculate costs. He simply said, "Come with me," in his accented English, abandoning his cart mid-shift and leading James to a battered 1998 Honda Civic parked in the far corner of the employee lot. The car was old, the passenger seat patched with duct tape, the interior smelling of pine air freshener and hard-earned dignity. But when Carlos turned the key, the engine rumbled to life. Reliable, faithful, ready. "Memorial Hospital?" Carlos asked, already pulling out of the lot. "Yes, please, thank you. I don't even know your name." "Carlos, and you don't need to thank me. You need to call your mother. Tell her you're coming." James's fingers fumbled with his phone as Carlos navigated the empty streets with quiet competence. The call connected, and a nurse's gentle voice answered. "She's asking for you," the nurse said. "She's holding on. Keep talking to her." For the next 17 minutes, James spoke to his unconscious mother through a nurse's held phone, his voice breaking as he told her about his day, about the merger he'd closed, about the stupid argument they'd had last week over his workaholic tendencies, an argument he'd give anything to have again. "Faster," James begged. "Please, can you go faster?" Carlos pressed the accelerator, his ancient Honda shaking as it pushed past its comfort zone. But then, 5 blocks from the hospital, the engine coughed, sputtered, died. No, 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 no. James's scream filled the small car. Carlos was already out, opening the hood, his practiced hands searching for the problem in the dim streetlight. "Fuel line," he muttered. "It's been acting up. I was saving to fix it, but we'll run!" James was already out of the car, his dress shoes slapping pavement. But Carlos grabbed his arm. 5 blocks? In those shoes? You'll never make it." Carlos looked at the dead car, at this desperate young man, and made a decision. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, old, cracked, but working. He opened an app James recognized. "Uber." "I've been saving," Carlos said quietly, his fingers flying over the screen. "For my granddaughter's quinceañera. $300. It's in 3 weeks, but..." He hit the button requesting the closest premium ride, the kind that would arrive fastest. "Surge pricing at 3 a.m., $75 for a 5-minute ride." "No," James choked out. "I can't let you. Your mother is dying. Nothing else matters." Carlos's eyes, dark and deep with a sorrow James suddenly recognized, met his. I lost my wife 8 years ago. Cancer. I was working a double shift, trying to earn extra for her treatments. She died alone because I wasn't there. I got there 12 minutes too late. 12 minutes. I've lived every day since knowing that no amount of money, no overtime, no sacrifice was worth those 12 minutes. The Uber pulled up, a black SUV that gleamed under the streetlights like salvation. Go, Carlos said firmly. Run to her. Don't make my mistake. James stumbled into the vehicle, giving the driver the hospital name, and as they pulled away, he looked back to see Carlos standing alone beside his broken-down car, having just spent money saved from months of night shifts, having just given away a piece of his granddaughter's celebration to save a stranger's last moments with his mother. James made it with 4 minutes to spare. 4 minutes to hold his mother's hand, to feel her squeeze back weakly, to hear her whisper, "My beautiful boy, I'm so proud of you." 4 minutes that Carlos Martinez's sacrifice had given him. 4 minutes he would carry for the rest of his life. She passed peacefully at 3:34 a.m., her son's hand in hers. The next morning, James returned to Peterson Technologies. But instead of going to his executive office, he went to the HR department, then to maintenance, then to the parking garage where he found Carlos's supervisor. The janitor who worked last night, Carlos Martinez. "Where is he?" "Fired him at 5 a.m., the supervisor said callously. "Abandoned his post mid-shift. Left his entire section uncleaned. Can't have that kind of unreliability." Something cold and furious flooded through James's grief. "Get him back here now, and get me everyone, in the main conference room at noon. I don't care if they're in meetings. I don't care if my father's calling from Singapore. Everyone." By noon, 300 employees packed the conference room, confused and whispering. James stood at the front, still in his wrinkled suit from the night before, his eyes red-rimmed but blazing. "Yesterday at 2:47 a.m., my mother started dying," he began, his voice steady despite the tears on his cheeks. "And a man that none of us truly saw, a man we passed every day without acknowledgement, a man whose name we didn't know, saved the most important 4 minutes of my life. He told them everything. Carlos's sacrifice, the quinceañera savings, the broken-down Honda, the 12 minutes that haunted a good man's life. And when he finished, the room sat in stunned silence. This company is worth $2.3 billion, James continued, his voice growing stronger. My father built an empire, but last night I learned that we built it on the backs of people we've made invisible. People who sacrifice more in a single shift than we sacrifice in a year. People who understand humanity in ways our MBA programs never taught us. He pulled out his phone, projecting his screen onto the conference room display. With shaking fingers, he transferred $50,000 to Carlos Martinez's account, the amount sitting in his personal checking account for incidentals. This isn't charity. This is a debt I can never fully repay, but it's a start. He looked around the room at the executives, managers, and board members. And here's what else is going to happen. Effective immediately, every custodial, maintenance, and service worker in this company is getting a 40% raise. Full health benefits, profit sharing, tuition reimbursement for their children. Because Carlos Martinez showed me that the worth of a human being has nothing to do with their job, title and everything to do with their character. Your father will never approve this, someone muttered. Then I'll quit, James said simply. I'll start my own company, one where we see people. All people. But he didn't have to, because that afternoon, when his father finally landed and heard the story, truly heard it, every word, Richard Peterson broke down in his office. He thought of his own wife, now gone, and how many Carlos Martinezes had worked in his buildings over the years, invisible and unacknowledged. Carlos Martinez became Peterson Technologies' Director of Corporate Culture, designing programs that ensured every employee, regardless of position, was seen, valued, and respected. His granddaughter's quinceañera was the event of the year, hosted in the company's executive ballroom, attended by janitors and CEOs alike, all of them family now. They established the Elena Peterson Memorial Fund in James's mother's name, providing emergency financial assistance to any employee facing crisis. No questions asked. no strings attached, because Carlos had taught them that humanity doesn't wait for approval processes. And every morning at 7 a.m., James Peterson arrived early, not to check emails or review reports, but to walk through the building learning names, the cleaning crew, the security guards, the cafeteria workers, every single person who made the empire function. Because one desperate night, a janitor with a broken-down Honda and a grandfather's savings showed him the most valuable business lesson he'd ever learn. Wealth means nothing if you're too blind to see the people who actually make your world possible. The marble floors still gleamed at Peterson Technologies, but now they reflected a company that finally understood what truly mattered. Not the bottom line, but the beautiful, irreplaceable humanity of every person who walked across them.